Gonna be- Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. And boy, do we have a treat for you tonight. So, we're going to propose a question. I have an amazing counterpart here who's going to give us some awesome expertise. But this is going to be a little less talking about hormones, right? And more talking about how can we change the damn narrative? Okay. So, stay with me, and here we go. Here is the question of the night. Is menopause worse because we expect it to be? Interesting, right? And how we're going to talk tonight about how mindset can shape the way that we age. I'm going to give a little bit of background here. And there are some cultures where women float into menopause like a rite of passage. Well, here in the US, we're over here. The boat is sinking, there's holes in it. We're trying to pour the water out, the end, and like nothing is, it's just a complete disaster. But is there something or a way that we can control part of that with mindset? And what does mindset and perception look like with symptom magnification? So the studies show, and our awesome guest is going to talk more about this, but women who expect menopause to be horrible experience worse symptoms, right? Think about what we're told in the US. We're dying, you're drying up, you're irrelevant, right? The internalized narrative creates fear, resistance, and shame. And I'm just going to give you a little bit about what that does from a hormonal aspect. It increases your cortisol, right? It makes the estrogen deficiency that you have worse, right? So what does this play? We're going to talk about one culture, which is Japan, right? The Japanese, and in some of their indigenous communities, aging is respected, right? It's not pathologic. It's not you're crazy, you're hysterical, you have a senile vagina. Older women are leaders, they're guides, they're powerful figures, right? So menopause in those cultures is seen as a release from fertility, not a loss of femininity, but a release. It's a power play, right? And guess what? They report less hot flashes, better sleep, and less anxiety, right? So the brain is powerful. The brain is powerful. And I brought a expert here. Not only is she my best friend, so lucky for me, but she is also expert, Dr. Jen. She's a PhD in health psychology and neuroscience. And she's going to talk to us today about mindset, and how that plays in how we perceive the world around us, really. Take it away.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, that's the core argument is that beliefs matter and they can even influence your biology. So making sure that the beliefs that you're feeding yourself are ones that are making you head in the direction that you want to go are really important now, but at all points during life also.
I love this for us. So, talk to us about you got some research you want to present to us today. Talk to us about what that looks like. Like, for somebody, a women, especially in this perimenopausal, menopausal state in the society that we live in, where we're constantly gaslit. We're told, you're crazy. Like, here's your antidepressants, here's your Xanax, go the heck over there. We don't have time for you. Like, is it really possible for us to like take back and change the narrative?
Yes, for sure. I think there's like two lines of research that I would like to talk about today. And the first one is the concept of mindfulness. And it's a topic that is like menopause, you hear in the media and around a lot. But the type of mindfulness that I find most intriguing was pioneered by Dr. Ellen Langer. She's the first female to ever be tenured at Harvard, and she's still teaching and doing research there now. Yes. And her version of mindfulness is not based on meditation or having to spend hours in a room being all Zen. It's really defined as actively noticing new things. And she has some very intriguing research about aging and um, other measures of health that show how our expectations and our beliefs really can influence biology. So, one study that I would love to share with you all was done back in 1979. And Ellen Langer and some research assistants recruited a group of 70 to 80-year-old men to live in a retreat center for a week. And what they did within this retreat center is retrofit everything so that it was made to be as if they were living 20 years in the past. So these 70 and 80-year old men were in their fifth would have been in their 50s or 60s at that time. And so they brought in old magazines and like sports games, baseball games that may have been from 1959. They were encouraged to talk as if they were in the present moment. So, not talk about the past, but talk about as if that time period was happening right then. And they were there for about a week. And prior to going there, she indexed all of these biomarkers of aging for people: blood pressure, vision, hearing, memory, cognitive function. And a week later, she retested these men. And on almost every biomarker that they took, they had improved. And one of the really interesting things is that they took photos of the men before and after, and they had blind raters rate how old they thought that the men were, both before and after they went on the retreat, and they even looked younger. And so the basic idea with this counterclockwise study is that mindset made a huge difference, and living as if they were 20 years younger. If they had that mindset, their bodies followed, and their it really challenged expectations that we have about beliefs and aging, and showed that there is some room for mindset and psychology to influence our physiology and biology in a really compelling way.
First off, that is so cool. I was thinking back like what was actually in the room. I know this is so silly, but like what was back in the room from the 1950s? I was thinking about those like, metal lunch boxes and like all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it brings up a good point, like especially from a menopausal standpoint or a perimenopausal standpoint, like things are happening, right, neurochemically. And this is not looking at neurochemistry. This is looking at how, when we put ourselves back somewhere else, when we believe that we are somewhere we're not really, right? Or this environment that we put ourselves in is reinforcing something else that doesn't matter what else is happening in the brain, right? It doesn't matter what else is happening in the body. The brain is so powerful, it can take us to where, like, make us believe and feel we are where we are, which to me is neuroplasticity, right? Like your hormones may be crazy, but your brain is really neuroplastic. Mindfulness, it does that. It retains the ability to shift that narrative and your self-awareness to, where you are.
Yeah, it's really evidence that where the mind goes, the body follows, right? And that challenges like a deep notion in psychology that mind and body are separate. And even within medicine, they have a biopsychosocial model where we separate the bio part from the psycho part, but really the influence is is strong. It could, when the thoughts that you think um, have the power to change how old you feel, and lots of other things too. He has many books on her research that shows that even things like glucose metabolism are sensitive to our expectations of time and things.
Well, I mean, and that makes sense, right? Because if our brain is so powerful, and then, from a biology standpoint, we have all of those neurotransmitters and things going on in the brain. If we're able to manipulate that, right, so to speak, this is a manipulation. So, if we are able to manipulate that, then of course we could have positive effects on the hormonal aspects, like glucose metabolism, for example. Um,
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about that time thing because that's actually kind of really cool. When you told me that, I was like, ooh, that's really interesting. Tell us a little bit about that perception of time.
The perception of time with glucose
Yeah.
metabolism.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more of Dr. Ellen Langer's research, and there was a group of people with type 2 diabetes, and she split them up into three different groups. One was in a room where the clocks moved faster than normal. One group was in a room where the clock just went as normal, and one was in a room where it was slower than normal. And none of them knew that there was any difference in the rooms that they were sitting in. They weren't told that the clocks weren't incorrect. And what they found is that people's blood sugar levels changed in alignment with the time that they thought it was, not what it actually was. So it's more evidence that the psychological experience of time, not just biology and actual time passing, can influence our physiology. So there are, mechanical aspects to glucose metabolism, but mindset and perception can also shape the response, um, the glucose response as well.
It's kind of like you have the ability to like build a new belief system that like calms your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Or like we have this like ability to do that and to change the narrative. Like I think about if we put a whole bunch of perimenopausal women in a room and we filled it with maybe some things like, or maybe immerse them in a different culture, right? Like a Japanese culture or something where women are strong and women are, women in transition, right? They are amazing and they're honorable and all of these different types of stimuli. If we could act like it would be really cool to measure their hormone levels before they go in and after, and especially like cortisol, right? And like epinephrine, like fight or flight things that we were when we're in chronic fight or flight, right? It would be interesting to look at those before and then look at those, after. And
This
see,
would be a study that we should do. I mean, you
we
could
should.
give people like scripts about like different scripts to on how to perceive perimenopause or menopause,
Yeah.
and then give people a set of empowering beliefs, and then people either nothing or some stereotypes about aging and perimenopause, and then see what happens in terms of their physiology. And the prediction would be that those that are given the positive beliefs about it are you would see different responses in their hormones and stress levels also,
So I think
because
we,
it's stressful to think that your body is like failing you all of a sudden, and then
yeah.
you end up feeling powerless. And like this version of mindfulness allows you to retain and like empower yourself, like keep some of the um I don't know, just make yourself feel stronger as you're looking at it, because the things that we are told or taught about it are just things that we start to endorse sort of automatically. And our prefrontal cortex is not online if we're letting these beliefs like just kind of, oh, this is what I'm supposed to expect. My doctor says this is just a normal part. I'm not going to be motivated to do anything different, right? If this is going to happen anyway, then what does it matter what I eat or when I go to sleep or if I exercise or not? Whereas like being able to actively notice new things and being mindful of that, it allows you to bring attention onto things that you can change and have power over.
And I will tell you, that is one of the most amazing things that I see when after about 3 months, 3 to 4 months of working with women, especially perimenopausal women, where like early perimenopausal women, where everything is really just chaotic. And remember, the narrative that we're fed is actually very limited because in the US, we don't, what do we expect from perimenopause or menopause? No one's written a narrative. Nobody talks about it. Like, yeah, maybe we do now, some influencers and stuff, but like, look back 5, 10 years, there isn't what narrative did you grow up with about perimenopause and menopause? I barely knew anything, and I'm a doctor, right? Like, we talked about it for 1 second in med school, if that, I can't even remember. But also, that's part of the problem. There isn't that narrative, right? So when this starts happening to us, then we go looking to that someone who has a narrative, right? And then The older generation of women also were not taught anything. And the generation before us really comes from the generation of, they were like, get skinny, go on all these diets, use, colonics to like lose weight and enemas, right? And like, that's really what the narrative was. Like my grandmother, she would starve herself, because that's what women did back then, right? So then you go, now we have no narrative really. Then we go looking for a narrative in the people that we trust, and they're like, what? Oh, well, it's just life. Like you're drying up. Like this is what it is. Then you go to your doctor and they're like, oh, it's just stress. You're a busy woman. You have kids. Do you think they ever does do you think any doctor tells a man that when they go into the doctor's office at 40 years old and says, I'm exhausted, all these things are happening? Do they say, oh, it's because you're a busy dad? I don't think so, right? So we do live in this world where we don't even know what the narrative is that's being said. And then everything is like so chaotic. So we don't even have something to try to change the narrative because the narrative's not being talked about. And that's really part of this whole movement, not only to help every individualized woman, but to create a collective societal narrative on what this transition point in women's life is. And if we can create that powerfully, right? If we can create a powerful narrative, a strong narrative, a good narrative, then maybe our kids have hope. Maybe our daughters don't have to experience the things we have and our moms have, right? And their moms have. And that's why this is so important to talk about. It's so important to talk about hormones, right? And it's so important to talk about all of the things, but the power in the way that we believe, in the mindsets that we hold, we have the power and the keys to change our own narrative. That can change something no matter what it is. It doesn't even have to be perimenopause and menopause, right? It could be anything happen in your life, but you can change the narrative from fear to power,
Hmm.
right? Fear to power. And you said something's really cool, like giving them, I don't know what you said. You didn't say affirmations, but that's what I thought of when you said empowering beliefs, maybe. I think that might be the word you use. Like give me some examples of like if we rent an Airbnb on Siesta Key and you fly down and we put all these women in this room, yeah, because don't like we'll do it, right? Like we'll do it. What are the like what would be some empowering beliefs that you would write down on that piece of paper that we give them or some of them?
I, I think that it's like just becoming more intentional. Like this is a time where I can be more intentional with my life. I have more freedom to do things with my life. It's the changes that are occurring in my brain are empowering, right? Not disabling. Like instead of describing things as symptoms, like they're an illness, like or senile, right?
Yeah, yeah, senile
Right.
vagina.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, we were talking about this, our Jen and I were talking about this earlier, but we now have a gentle urinary syndrome of menopause. And before that, there was one name, but before that, so 2 times ago, it was called senile vagina. Like, check out that narrative. Senile vagina. I mean, there you go. There's that narrative written all over. Where I was going earlier, kind of lost my train of thought on that, but this is exactly it. The empowering not only statements, but when I see women 3 to 4 months later after we've really tried to like, where get some estrogen, we get some progesterone, we talk about all the things. There's a reason why Lesh Lifestyles logo is a circle because hormones are only a piece of that. It is about lifestyle. It is about what you put in your body. It is about how you move. It is about all of those things. But the most powerful thing that I see, and it's not even intentional, like we do this, but they change their own narrative. You know why? Because we gave them power in what those symptoms are. They start recognizing what those symptoms are, and then they know them, right? So I'm going to give a good example. I had a patient come, and this poor girl was so chaotic. She was like, my life is all over the place. I'm gonna get a divorce. Like I just can't do this. Da, 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 da. And then fast forward 4 months, and I'm getting an email in the EMR that was like, hey, I had these symptoms like a week ago, and I checked where I was in my cycle, and I was like on day 2 after ovulation, and I know you said that's like when my estrogen starts to decline again. So I was like, maybe I just need some estrogen. And I was like, whoa, whoa, because not only it's not even just about the estrogen, right? It's not about the hormone. It's about she had the ability to take what she was feeling and instead of thinking of it negatively and saying, "Oh my God, what is this? This is oh my God, I feel awful. What is this?" She was like, "Oh, I know what this is." And there's so much power in that. She took back her own power from her
Mhm.
body by just simply understanding what it was, naming it, and changing how she felt about it now compared to what she felt about it the 3 or 4 months before that.
Yeah.
And we see that time and time and time again. And we're not even purposely telling people to be mindful, right? Which I'm going to start doing, but we're not even purposely saying, like, try to think differently, but try to think differently. But as you educate, and that's why we have to change this narrative. We have to put the narrative out there as a culture, right? And then women will have the power, will go in with a little bit of understanding, at least a little bit of central narrative to be able to pick and choose from and say, okay, you're right. Oh my gosh, like this feels really out of control. I know what this is. This is estrogen. I am in control and
Mhm.
I am powerful. And that, like, why does affirmation work? I mean, do you think affirmation because it works in the same area?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when one of the central feature of being human, or what makes humans maybe different from other animals, is our prefrontal cortex and its capacity to imagine different possibilities. It's why you can have an idea of wanting to have Lesh lifestyle, and now you can bring that into reality. It's because you are capable of imagining it. So as human beings, we have a powerful tool to imagine all different types of possibilities, and then our brain follows that. So what you do most often, you're carving and wiring yourself to expect that thing to happen. So that's why
Yeah.
affirmations, or just how you talk to yourself and what your expectations are, can be so important, because if you let somebody else control that narrative and they're uninformed or stuck in the 50s or haven't had any medical training or something, it's dangerous to let that go, and let someone else's ideas influence, how you see yourself and what's happening to your body.
Yeah, and like again, affirmations, are wonderful because when we, as humans, as you said, when we say things out loud, we believe them,
Mhm.
right? And that is us, changing the brain, right? Like changing. I have this negative thought, and I'm going to say this, and it's going to come out and be a positive thought, and that is powerful. And also think about this when we teach people how to do sleep hygiene, what is one of the things that we say? We say to them, don't lay in your bed, right, until it's bedtime. And then do the same thing. These are just basic sleep hygiene stuff. Then do the same ritual every night, just like you do with your kids, right? When you bathe them. Why? Because then your brain expects what comes next, which is sleep, right? Like
Yes.
your brain tells if it's like, okay, I wash my face, I listen to my positive affirmations, or I say my positive affirmations, I take a bath, I smell lavender, whatever it is you do, I knit. What it is you don't do is watch a screen, right? But like I do my red light, whatever it is. When you do that over and over again, your brain then knows what comes next, which is sleep in that case, right? So if we continue to change that narrative when it happens, and I'm not saying that's easy, and I know you're not. Mindfulness is not easy. It's calculated and it can be difficult, right? Especially when we're talking about perimenopause and menopause in which we don't really have a narrative. That's that
Right.
great, right? We all come at it with a different narrative because of what our moms told us, or our aunts, or society, or what YouTuber you're listening to, or who you're listening to on Instagram, right?
Mhm.
Um, we all come at it with something different, but the power and like, I don't know, the I think of like, estrogen is really powerful in the brain too, right? Like, our brain has so many estrogen receptors. And there was research, this is kind of cool. I'm sure you probably know this, but the hypothesis would be that if women, because evolution, we get rid of everything 51 and a half and everything goes down, that the estrogen receptors would down regulate in our brain, right? Because if the
Mhm.
body knows you don't need them,
Yeah.
then that's what we would think. So a really awesome researcher like said, I want to see what estrogen receptors do in the brain. Number one, we didn't even have an assay to be able to test that, which is crazy. So she created one, of course she did, because she's awesome. And then they looked at what does estrogen receptors look like in the female brain, post menopause. Those estrogen receptors were upregulated, not
Get
downregulated.
more, right?
Yeah. And so like we know in the postmenopausal body does put out some estrogen, it's estrone, it's different type, which is a little bit more pro-inflammatory and things like that. So, but the brain is upregulates that. So estrogen does play a huge role in the brain, but it may shape the way the brain feels, right? But mindfulness can remind the brain of who it is.
Hmm.
Like that is so powerful. And that again, we're not hitting on like estrogen, taking estrogen or not taking estrogen. This is more about how you can perceive what's happening to you and you have the control to make it whatever it is that you want it. And if it is chaotic and you are chaotic and it's scary and you don't know, that's exactly what it's going to be. Right? But if you use it as a power move, as a power play, okay, this is my estrogen. I know what to do, right? And you may be doing all these other things. I'm going to red light. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to eat clean. I'm going to take my estrogen, right? I'm going to do these things. But this is a power play in my life, right? This is my transition. This is my time. Like the outcome would just be so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like I mean, I think about it and it's just like where like how freeing is it that like you could give up some expectations of like what society tells you to be and how to be, and I was on an estrogen blocker for 5 years when I was in my 30s. And so I would have all of the hot flashes and everything else along with my menstrual cycle. But one of the things that was like very noticeable because I was on it in my 30s and then off it in my 30s is like how like for the first time I experienced like I cared less what other people thought. And I was like, I actually kind of like this. I mean, this is actually kind of like freeing for me to like not have other people's thoughts like running through my head all the time and just being able to block them out better. And so um I think that like being I don't know, I think I'm like looking forward to some of the changes that could happen because that was like a freeing thing to not just be driven by like, well, what will so and so think if I do this or do that when like it doesn't even matter and make any difference in their life. Like I'm the one who has to go through and like live with all of the decisions that I make and I don't know, help me put myself first in some ways also, which I think needed to happen.
And it's a power move, right? It being able to control our own narrative again in perimenopause, again when you're going through something that's difficult, right? It doesn't matter. We're saying this in the context of like perimenopause and menopause, but like this is for everything. It's not just like, oh, this works in perimenopause. This is for every single thing that happens in your life, right? Every single thought that you have. And I think just understanding and recognizing the power that we have. I think when this happens, like when perimenopause happens and it's so chaotic, or when you get a bad diagnosis and everything, your world is crumbling down around you, the last thing you think of is that you have the ability to change how you feel about this, right? Like everything is just so crazy and chaotic. Like we can't even reflect back to the fact, or maybe we don't even know. Like, I don't know. Did you know, like, without all your stuff that like, did you know in your 20s that mindfulness like changed the way you like thought you had that much control over your thoughts? I didn't.
No, I don't think they teach yeah, no.
And
I,
that's the point though.
yeah.
That's the point though, right? Like more than just talking about this and just talking about perimenopause in general from, oh, here's how we help you. It's like we don't have that out there. And that's probably true a little bit in your situation in the case of why you were on, had to be on the blocker and having that diagnosis, right? There's a group of people that understand that, right? There's a group of people, but the narrative about getting a cancer diagnosis when you hear that is awful, right? It's like, oh my God, it's life ending. It's all of these things and the fact that we have the power, that doesn't mean we don't have to do hard things. That doesn't mean we don't have to go through hard therapy. That doesn't mean that things are going to be perfect, but that we have the power to control how we feel and think about it. And I would also argue that if we think more positively about it and we actively are mindful and spin the narrative, that has positive health effects on us,
Yes.
right? That and I mean we can think about that from a cortisol, from fight or flight. We know all of those things being elevated in the body aid in chronic disease, right? They
Mhm.
aid in our immune system being down. They aid in all of those things happening. So no matter what it is, if we can control that and we have the power, then we even have the power and the ability to affect the outcome and how
Yeah.
our body perceives that.
Yes. I think we one of the things that like Ellen Langer's research going forward is like how to build like an oncology center that's grounded in mindfulness and having patients having access to the therapeutic benefits or assessing them first, but then if
Sure.
they're there, like the therapeutic benefits of mindset. And like I learned about Ellen Langer from a friend of mine who's a four-time cancer survivor, and she's been through it all, like been had to tell hospice to leave her hospital room because she didn't have a use for them at that time, and she's doing really well. She's actually been replicating some of the counterclockwise studies with retreats that she's been doing. So there's definitely a lot of context that understanding like the psychological benefits of things and the interplay between that and diagnoses or other like physiological processes is powerful.
Yeah. And I don't want to keep you much longer, but I do want to end with the fact that in a world where things are so chaotic and we don't have a control of a lot of things, just the basic understanding that we do get to dictate how we perceive things is a powerful tool. And it's one that I have to sit with too myself. Like I don't even fully understand and grasp that at this point. We were talking earlier and I was telling you about that my positive affirmations that I started, and that's from a mindset standpoint, right? And it's because I in my brain had so many negative self thoughts, right? Like I had so many, there's this negative self-talk, it runs rampant, as I'm sure it does in many people. And I was like, I cannot do this. I cannot be successful. I cannot do the things I need to do with all this negative self-talk. So creating these affirmations for me that hit all of those, I created a one-line sentence for each one of my negative self-thoughts, self-talks that would come in my brain all the time. And just creating that and instituting that in my life every day has become so powerful. It doesn't mean that I don't still have them, right? But when they come, my brain almost already knows how to combat it,
Yeah.
right? So like that comes and then boom, just like the sleep piece, my brain says, you're not good enough, right? Or whatever. And then that affirmation that I say sweeps over my brain without me even saying it. And at first I had to say them all the time. But like I've really just trained my brain to know how to respond, right? Know how to respond. And it kind of, I just thought of this right now, but it does go back a little bit to like military wise, this why do we train as we fight, right? Like because That's exactly what your brain does. Your brain knows what the next step is once you've done it over and over and over again, right? Muscle memory, that isn't that's a thing about muscle, but it's really brain, right? Your brain, you've done this exercise so many times, your brain knows what the sixth step is. So when you get held up at the fifth, it can get you to the sixth, right? And that's exactly what's happening here with mindfulness and just in positivity and staying in that that mindset. And I really like thank you for being here because I think that all of these things need to be talked about, right? Like, yes, I'm so happy that we're finally talking about hormones and we're finally helping women and we're not gaslighting them and just giving them antidepressants and Xanax or telling them nothing's wrong with you, your labs are fine. But there's so much more to living a quality best life you can than just taking hormones, right? That's a piece of this, but
Mhm.
there's so much more to it than that. And that's the word we want to get out. And the more important than anything, I think, is changing the damn narrative. Not even changing, but creating one. We don't have one. So let's create a positive narrative, right? Like we're kind of at a place like it's kind of good. What is out there is bad, right? There's like talks out there. It's like all blah blah. But let's create a strong, a powerful narrative. Let's create what we want our daughters and our granddaughters and the world that we want them to live in and the narrative that we want them to know and feel about themselves. And by all means, let's be like the Japanese. Let's be like those indigenous communities and show that this transition in life for us is a power move. It's a power play, and we have the ability to take that back and run with it. So I really, really thank you. And I also want to say I'm speaking this out there because I just believe in speaking things that we want, and manifesting them. But I do envision a mindfulness retreat here in Sarasota.
Okay.
And you're going to be there, of course. You're going to be our one of our biggest influencers and speakers, but it's what women need. It is what we need, right? And this is the beginning. And I think that we need to take steps to change the narrative, and that's one of them that we can do. So I look forward to doing that with you. I'm so thankful for you being on here. I'm more thankful for you being my best friend. But do you have any last words to say to everyone before we let them go?
I think you just want to use like all the tools in your toolbox, right? So the mindfulness is a tool, hormones are a tool, affirmations are a tool. And so why wouldn't you just use everything to your advantage? And like you carry your mind with you wherever you go. And so it's always there. It doesn't cost anything. Like why not just feed it with healthy like positive thoughts. It's going to be there no matter what. Like it just trying to break habits of negativity. And like you were saying with your affirmations, it's just the brain is based on experience dependent neuroplasticity. So you stopping the negative thought and giving it something to replace it with is really what you're doing. You're wiring or re-experiencing your reality based on what your thoughts you choose and what you choose to quiet and what you choose to turn up.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'm like, I love this for us,
Turn
right?
up the noise.
Yeah, yeah, turn it up, turn it up. Okay, well, thank you so much. And like we say every time, until next time, stay well.
Thank you so much.